There were 13 colonies which were put in three groups. The first group was called New England Colonies, which consisted of Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New Hampshire. The second group was Middle Colonies, which consisted of Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, and Delaware. The third group was the Southern Colonies, which consisted of Virginia, Maryland, North Carolina, and South Carolina.
There were people that came to America that created the New England colonies who did not want to follow the Church of England. They wanted a new society and do what God believed in. In the Middle Colonies, there were people that came from several parts of Europe. People came from England, Scotland, Ireland, Sweden, France, the Netherlands, and Germany. Many of the people that came from Europe were very surprised. The reason why was because there were Native Americans and also African slaves. The soil in the Middle Colonies was very fertile, unlike the New England colonies. The Southern Colonies turned to cash crops. You may ask yourselves, what are cash crops? Cash crops are grown entirely for their sale value, and the two most important ones were tobacco and cotton.
The Stamp Act was passed in 1765. What did the Stamp Act do? It placed a direct tax on the American colonists. The Stamp Act became the first tax put directly on the colonies. Every legal document had to be written on stamped paper to prove colonists had paid taxes. The people disagreed, so they didn't want to buy the British goods and didn't want the tax or the army. The Stamp Act was repealed in 1766. After repealing the Stamp Act,
Parliament issued the Declaratory Act. This basically said that Parliament had total rule over the colonies. England was still in charge.
leaders were happy about the end of the Stamp Act. What is taxation without representation? It is the idea of placing taxes on people who have no saying against or have control over the taxing authority. In Boston, 3 ships carrying tea were allowed to enter the harbor. On a December night in 1773, people dressed up as Native Americans and tossed 342 chests of tea into the water. It was a huge loss of money. It could be worth $750,000 today. On March 5th, 1770,
There were about 60 townspeople. They began throwing rocks and also snowballs towards the soldiers. The British had no choice but to fire back, which caused the death of 5 men, including Crispus Attucks, a former slave. It was a disaster.
Parliament was tired of the 13 colonies causing problems, so they passed the Intolerable Act. It closed the Boston Harbor until the owners of the tea were paid back. Town meetings were banned. The power of the royal governor was increased.
On September 5th, there was a meeting of the First Continental Congress that took place in Philadelphia. It was the first time the colonies came together to oppose the British. History was made on that day.